Well, thank you for joining us tonight on the Lessons of Vietnam show. We have a very special guest tonight with us. Some of you may have been with us for a long time, may remember Mr. Bob Mathews, who was the co-host of the Lessons of Vietnam show. Uh, Bob has moved down to Pennsylvania. He's one of the few people that from the north come south, then go back to north to retire. Most people come down here and retire, but anyway, this Bob is with us tonight, and this is the Lesson of Vietnam show. We're broadcasting the studios of Nissan Communications, Raleigh, North Carolina. They're gracious enough to give us a chance to tell the real story of the Vietnam War and those that served and those that served wherever they were located. I am your host, Bill Dixon, Vietnam vet, 6768 at Long Binh Post, South Vietnam. Your participation in the show is always encouraged and appreciated. To participate, see your screen here, and you can see the information there. Computers 2K voice, come in on Skype or the phone 919-518-9773 and join us. If you have any questions for Bob or just come in and let us know you're there with a question, and we'll get your question to Bob. He'll be able to hear you. As you can see, as our normal Veterans Crisis Line, I've been standing quite a bit lately with the Patriot Guard Riders, those who the group that pays respect for deceased veterans who are at the cemeteries and funeral homes. And this weekend, we stood for 3 suicide soldiers. You hear all this time about the Veterans Crisis Line, but it really hits home. One young man was 21 years old, joined the Army in January, been married 4 months, and committed suicide. Folks, if you know somebody out there or you are out there, look at these numbers, write them down. 1-800-273-8255, press 1, or to text it. Reach out for help. There's a lot of people out there wanting to help you and so forth. So now we're going to see Bob. For those of you who don't remember who he looks like, he's husband, father, grandfather, educator, coach, Vietnam veteran. He's the originator of the Lessons of Vietnam course. This is a course he started with some finagling, and it started at Inland High School and here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the course grew and grew, and is used all over the school, all over the United States now. We've gone to teachers symposiums all over the country, teaching teachers how to teach the course. He is also the originator of the Bridge Back Foundation, sometimes called the Mathews Group. But that's another story I'm certain he'll get into.
I knew you would.
All right, there's Bob at the Vietnam Experience at the North Carolina History Museum. As you can see, the Lessons of Vietnam to Teach a Nation. And he has basically taught a nation all over across the United States and gone back to Vietnam and taught there as well. He set up the trips back to Vietnam, and we before we went to the teachers, some of the other teachers, and some of his students, and we had the students here put together a package, and we carried it to the students of Vietnam and gave them to the high school students there. And quite often, the students there in Vietnam were emailing the students back here, and vice versa before we ever left. Bob, it's good to talk to you again, and I understand your weather is not quite as nice as it is here today, but then again, it is up in the north part of the country.
That's true, Bill. Good to hear your voice again, and from the Mathews Group. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Yes. Okay.
But
what I want to do, Bob, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You always downplay your role, and you shouldn't, because everything that we've done with the course, its longevity all over the country, the trips back to Nam, the playgrounds, you are 100% responsible.
Well, it was a group effort between you and I and NCVI and Joe Harsh. There's no one person could put it all together. It was a kind of group effort with you and I spearheading it, with you keeping me in line as much as possible, if that is possible. But
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I know one thing, Bill. We would not take no for an answer.
no,
And
sir.
as you stated earlier, when we had this brainstorm years ago about teaching Vietnam to America, we all understood that the wall was built to heal a nation, and it has, but it didn't teach a nation. We had to do that, and it was our responsibility, and we took it on head first, and I think we accomplished it.
Yes,
It's
sir.
been
I do. I still see students that were took the course, and they still remember the course and so forth. So after all these years, I guess it's been close to 25. We've been doing this, and
it is.
the students
It's
still
really
seem to
Bill.
remember. Yeah.
Bill, that's it. I can say this without any reservation that the lessons of Vietnam, with your help and Joe, all the other guys and girls, it's probably been one of the proudest things of my life, because we came back, you and I, fairly intact from Nam, and a lot of guys didn't, and they were mad, they were angry, they were hurt, they were abused physically, emotionally, and nobody gave a crap about what happened to them. And that time you and I went to the wall and heard all those stories, we knew. We knew we had a responsibility, and it was to tell the truth, tell it often, and tell it everywhere.
Yes, sir.
And that's why when you said that one famous line that, when were you in Vietnam? Well, we all were there last night,
Yes.
and sharing it with the nation has been a joy for me, and I continue to do it on a daily basis. Pittsburgh's a little tougher than Carolina because it's so spread out. I think we had more success in Carolina because of you guys. I had more people to help me, get into the schools, and you guys almost got me fired several times, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I could I could rebound very well.
yeah, we did have a tendency to gang up on a little bit. For those of you who have not heard a whole lot about it, Bob, I'm gonna let him tell you a little bit about how he got to Vietnam. You grew up on a small island there somewhere in Pennsylvania. How far from Pennsylvania were you?
Well, I'm on the
I'm
same island. It's
from
called it's called Neville Island, Neville. John Neville. It's 9 miles from downtown Pittsburgh, in the middle of the Ohio River. It is 5 miles long and a half a mile wide. It has two red lights, two stoplights, and it has about 1,200 people on the island. And I'm related to all of them. I'm just kidding. I am.
Well, that's a southern thing, that Bob.
I know it
So
is.
you went to college.
I did after high school. I went to college,
Where did
a
you
little
go?
little college in Pennsylvania called Edinburgh.
Yeah.
It was called a state college then, and they all went to universities here
Hmm.
for funding that thing. But yeah, I went to Edinburgh for 4 years, and then Betty and I got married my senior year, and we had the senior there, and then I did my student teaching, and I was ready after graduation in June or really late May to get a teaching job and start my career, which I was going to. And I had a job, and I got called to go to the draft office, the draft board in Pittsburgh, which was about 150 miles from Edinburgh. So we drove down. I got my physical. I was disgustingly normal, of course. I graduated early. I was 20, 21 really, and so I didn't think I'd get drafted because I had a teaching job, but I did get drafted. And the principal told me that don't sign your contract because you got to go. We will protect science teachers and math teachers, but we can't protect social studies teachers. Never forget his phrase. He says social studies teachers are like a dime a dozen. There's a lot of you guys coming out of college that teach history and coach. I said, well, I guess I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So I went to the draft board, and I got drafted. Went to Fort Bliss, Texas for basic training. Hated it, of course. It was El Paso in August. And I went to Fort Huachuca, which I never heard of, in a town called Sierra Vista, Arizona, outside Tucson. Got AIT, Vietnam training, the whole bit. Got orders to Nam. Never got east again. So I went from Pittsburgh to Texas to Arizona, back to Pittsburgh for an 18-day leave, and then kept going to Nam. Arrived in Nam, same as you, 67, 68, and worked for Artillery Battalion in Pleiku up in the Highlands with the mountain yards. And then, as you know, a lot of troops were being diverted every day in Vietnam. So I got diverted, and the guy saw my jacket and said, "You got a college degree." I said, "It did me a lot of good, didn't it?" He goes, "Well, we need a lot of people down there in Saigon that have a college degree." I said, "For what?" "I've got an F-16, and that's all I need." So I went down there for a test. They tested me out, gave me a top secret clearance, put me in an intelligence unit. And I said, "That's an oxymoron, military intelligence." They all laughed at that. Sure they did. So basically, I was in the Trang, Pleiku, in and out of Cam Ranh Bay and Saigon for a full year, 67. Being married, it was tough, of course, but you were also. I got my R&R to Hawaii, met Betty there, came back from Nam, safe and sound, physically, little depleted mentally, but we all were, about 30 pounds lighter, much better looking and much better tan. And then went back to the same place for a job, and I'll be darned, the same guy interviewed me. His name was Bill Fry, and I think Bill had on the same tie. He said, "Well, Bob, where you been?" I said, I was on vacation. He goes, "That Tan's on vacation. Where were you?" I said, "I was in Vietnam." He goes, "You want a job?" I said, "Yeah, that's why I came." He goes, "Will you coach?" I said, "Yes." "Will you teach?" I said, "Yes." He hired me that day. So
Tell us what you coach. You coach soccer and baseball,
and football.
And football. Okay.
Well, see, the thing was, Bill, in the mid to late '60s, if you went for a teaching job, and if you could coach water polo, they would hire you. So I said, "I'll coach anything." So he said, "How about you coaching JV football, soccer, and baseball, and we'll give you $100. I said, "Thank you." So I said, "Great." So I coached ninth grade football, and then I coached 10th grade football, and then I was varsity baseball for several years, a little bit of soccer, and then heard there's a Blue Skies in Carolina. So after 15 years,
now tell us how you got down to Carolina with your baseball group.
Well, it was very interesting because we were doing very well in baseball. We had won the league title like 10 years in a row, but we couldn't get any better. We're getting pretty good, but not real good. So I thought of spring training, high school spring training, and no one ever thought of that. The principal said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I want to go south and take my team and get a little better, come back here and win the state title." He goes, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I think I'm going to go to North Carolina." So he said, "Well, we can't give me any money." I said, "I know, I don't want any money." I said, "I can raise some funds," which we have all our lives. So we raised the money, got a bus, drove to Carolina, went to Apex High School, and fell in love with the place. We came 3 years in a row. And then after the third year, the principal at Apex called me and said, "This area is really growing. Would you consider coming down here to teach and coach?" I said, "I'd consider it." But he said, "No, I want you to consider it." I said, "I am considering it." So me and Betty got in the van, took the kids in, and took a drive, saw how beautiful Apex and Cary was, drove over to Apex, and he made some promises he probably shouldn't have made. But he said, "If you come down, I'll make you baseball coach. Oh, by the way, you have to coach soccer too." I said, "Okay. And I'll make you department chair in social studies." I said, "That sounds pretty good to me." So we went back and packed, tore everybody goodbye in Meadville, came down to Carolina, and taught there from 1980 till I retired.
All right.
So my story is not, it's not a movie, but it was fun. A lot of fun in Pennsylvania. Great move to Carolina. Met you guys, and got to teach and coach, and it's beautiful weather. And I loved every minute of it.
Well, Bob, you were recently inducted into the Apex Hall of Fame.
I was. About a year ago, I got a call from Apex Athletics, and they were starting a Hall of Fame for coaches and athletes. And I was nominated, and I was elected to the Hall of Fame. And I went down to the ceremony. I believe you were there, Bill. And
Yeah.
I went down to the ceremony at Apex. I was really deeply honored because all you guys came, all the veterans, dozens of students came, and ex-athletes came to pay me, I guess, homage, whatever you want to call it, but honor me. It was wonderful. And they gave me a plaque. And I guess they thought quite a bit of what we did there over the years, but it was a labor of love from the beginning. Apex High School was growing. I had a lot to offer, they said, and it just seemed to be a fit. So I did get the Hall of Fame at Apex, correct. And then I moved on later to Enloe High School in Raleigh, the big school, because I wanted to teach Vietnam, and I couldn't get it in. I couldn't teach it in Vietnam, they wouldn't let me. And I tried to teach it in Apex, and it was such a small school with traditional classes, no electives. So the spot was Enloe. They were course rich.
Yeah. Bob, you were, Bob, let me interrupt just a minute. Kind of give you were a pretty innovative teacher before the Vietnam course. Tell us about how you taught the Depression.
Oh, well, it was funny because I was teaching U.S. history, and I always remember my father's stories because he lived through the Depression. He told me some stuff about the Depression, different things they did to get by. And so I'm talking to my kids in class, and I could see it was going over their heads. They didn't understand what it meant to be hungry. And I was talking to Apex and Cary kids. They've never been hungry. And so I said, well, let's try something. So we went down in the woods behind Apex, and we built a Hooverville called a shanty town. And we built shacks in the woods. And you could buy nothing. You had to scramble and scavenge everything. And then you had to spend the night in it with me. I built my own hut. They built theirs. We went down in the woods, 25 students in December. It was cold. We had the police chief, the principal, and Channel 5 News come down to judge the shacks to see which one was the best. And we spent the night there. And the rule was you had to go to school the next day with no shower. And I got sweatshirts made that said, I survived Hooverville. I mean, those kids were great. They ate Spam, ketchup soup. They put cardboard in their shoes. They wrapped in newspapers. I took them back in history about 40 years, and they never forgot that. I'm still cold from that night.
Yeah, that's you got their attention, and they can relate to it. To me, that's what social studies is all about. Is not just sitting down and listening to a lecture. And I think that's one of the things when you set up the Lessons of Vietnam course, the idea of veterans coming in and speaking on a regular basis was somewhat unique in itself. And that I thought the notebook you had where all the students had their a notebook was with the links. There was so much innovation in your Lessons of Vietnam course. I'm not going to have you explain how you got the course in Enloe because I'm not certain that the limit of jail time is passed enough yet. So,
okay.
But you had the course there. You had. I remember when you called up and you were so mad because they were going to put you out in there in one of them damn trailers.
That's right. Exactly right. That's my exact words. I was so mad they put me in the trailer, and I said, okay, you want to put me in the woods? Okay. So we called it the swamp. We put a couch in there. They're just like on MASH. We call it the swamp. And as you talked about innovation, the kids were like so thirsty for knowledge about Nam in the 60s. We come up with a logbook. And as you guys come in, you guys were rock stars. You guys came in, and they could not wait to see you guys. We had coffee on. We had donuts. It was like being in their den. And then all of a sudden, their day was made because of Bill Dixon and Joe Hart. Somebody came in and took them on a journey back to Vietnam. and they felt so special. I have been told 100 times by those kids that they have never had a relationship other than their parents that they treasured more than meeting you guys.
Well, Bob,
So
that
if you took them
class was a
somewhere,
perfect class to get it started
it
because there's
was
never been another class like those guys. Those guys
never.
were just, they do just about anything to keep the class going and so forth. I mean, they jumped in wholeheartedly, accepted the whole thing. They were like the veterans themselves.
They were.
That group of kids, and
They
it
were
goes
the,
back to you're motivating them and so forth. But they were
well, they were
very
the charter
special. That was
members.
a very special class.
Well, I remember it was because I knew they'd be tested because we want to take them to the wall. And I went into the principal and said, we're going to take the kids to the wall because it's such a big part of this course is remembering our lost brothers and sisters. And he said, well, you can go to the wall, but you can't spend the night. And I said, okay. I said, so talk to the kids. And they said, so what? We'll leave at 3 a.m. I got a lot of parent calls that night. What the heck you doing? I said, well, we're leaving at 3 a.m. We're going to D.C., going to spend the day and come back. And they have to go to school the next day or they'll blow the whole thing. Every single one of them did. That class was so special. And to this day, you told me earlier, you'll see kids around Wake County. I'll get a email, a letter in the mail once in a while saying, Coach, thank you. That was the best class of my life. And they went on to college, and they search out Vietnam classes in colleges and take them. And in that class, they're the star. They're not worth anybody because you guys took them into your hearts and told them your story. And we had one rule. We'll answer any question you have. Just listen for the answer. They became much better students.
We had some
Made me a
fantastic.
better teacher.
We had some fantastic trips with those kids. Trips with those kids to Washington D.C. Never a problem with any of them.
Never.
We meet sometimes at 12 o'clock at night in front of the wall, and those kids always reverent at the wall. Good kids. If I remember correctly, you met a former student in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, Mickey Sturdivant. We were in the, I was in Nam in Saigon, and she was in the first class. She was in the charter class, and she took a course in college called Semester at Sea. She was at a college, and they took a ocean liner around the world. In every city, they have a lesson. They dock and go into the city, and she said they docked in Saigon, and she was telling all her classmates on the boat on the ship that she had this special class and this teacher named Bob Mathews, and they didn't believe her. So I'm downtown Saigon having a beer on the street with Link Page, of all people, walking down the street. All of a sudden, I hear this young, good-looking blonde girl scream, Mr. Mathews, and she dove on my neck. I didn't know what was going on. Then I recognized her. And she told me the whole story. So I took her and her friends to dinner on the roof of the Rex. And we talked and talked and talked. You know, talk about a small world. So she go back, called her parents, and they called me and said, you met Vicky in Saigon. I said, it was such a coincidence, but it was wonderful. It was, it makes a small world seem small.
Yep. Yeah, I still remember our trip to the Rex Hotel and the bar up there with the MC and the singer and so forth. We kind of took over the hotel.
Oh yeah, that was great. We said that's when we made the members of the honorary members.
Dave Samuels helicopter group. We made them all honorary members.
And we asked the band leader to be quiet.
Yes,
and he said,
and introduce us.
And he said okay.
And to introduce us. So we got introduced to the whole thing. You know, you're the one that kind of got lined up with song. You know, everything just seemed to fall in place. You couldn't ask for a better guide in Vietnam than Song. The fact that he was high school students when the Marines landed at China at Red Beach, holding up a sign, "Welcome U.S. Marines." When Saigon fell, he was in the Air Force, Vietnamese Air Force there at Bien Hoa, spent some time in re-education camps. and I believe you could tell him to do anything, he would do it for you.
Well, Saul was one of those guys that he was a teacher. He was a good guy. And why I met him years before. He said, what kind of group are you with?" I said, "I'm with the Vietnam veterans. They were coming back to Vietnam," which I didn't know we were then. But I said, "Well, I'm going to talk them into it. We're going to come back." And we finally did go back, and that song, and all he wanted was a Bridgeback white shirt. And I said, "Okay." He wore it for 8 days. And I said, "Song, you are legendary." And then we went to meet him in D.C., me and Mike Lynch. So he's been back a couple of times, and Song is a really good friend of ours, the whole groups.
In fact, we have a standing invitation to go to his house for dinner next time we go back.
Right.
So we got to go to Da Nang and go back and go to
Da
Nang.
Nang.
And
Song Tran has been the guide to many, many veterans. Every one of them has really high praise for him because he really cares about everybody. Yeah. He's a good guy.
Well, he really definitely likes those. The last time we were there, I believe we gave him and his wife both a Bridgeback shirt.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go show a couple more of the slides so we can kind of see where we are and so forth and some of our trips. There you are talking to a young lady in high school in Vietnam, and you're listening intently to what she's saying. You got on your Bridgeback, North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Bridgeback shirt there. And
oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's when I needed to shave as usual.
Yeah.
But I said I can't help it. And John, my buddy John DeWitt, would say, "Get a haircut."
Yeah, the colonel was after you constantly to get a haircut and shave, and
the colonel was he came around after a while.
Yeah,
because no one paid attention to him.
He actually loosened up a little bit.
He had to loosen up. You're right, but.
All right, let's see the kids in Nam. Yeah, let's see the next one. See where we are. There you are, teaching. That's Ron Harris standing beside you, and one of the students, and that's one of the classes where the kids open up the packages and so forth. This is the same place that we that you taught them how to play softball in the gym.
Right, that's right.
And then they got so good it was dangerous because they were starting to hit the ball, and the ball was flying all around everywhere.
That's right. Look at Ron Harris. He looks so distinguished. But there's a Psalm to the right. Over there on the right is Psalm.
Yeah, cut off. Yeah,
Dave Samuels, Dave in the back, and Sue Vaughn over there in the back too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sue Vaughn. Anyway, after we taught those kids, it was interesting. We all noticed the same thing is when we came in, they all stood up, and then they were so polite and all could speak English, and they treasured those envelopes you talked about.
Yeah. But you never could, Bob, you never could get the students here to stand up like that when you walked in the room, though, could you?
Oh, no. They barely got up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But, it was funny because a lot of kids in Wayne County are still pen pals with Vietnam kids. And a lot of the Vietnam kids grew up, got jobs, got money, came to the U.S., and saw their pen pals. They physically united with them.
Well, I believe, Bob, this is the trip that you had prizes for, and you asked them questions and prizes. And one of the questions you asked them was who won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And they surprised you with the answer.
Yeah, they did. They did surprise me.
Their football is different than our football. Their football was soccer. And we were thinking about the NFL, AFL.
I was. I said, we won a world championship, and they said some English team. I said, what are you talking about? Oh, okay, now I got you. And they killed me on that one.
Yeah. All right, let's see what the next one is. There, I believe that's myself, you, and Joe Harsh. I think we're in Seattle there, teaching the teachers how to teach the course.
Well, there it is. There's, it's me and you, and Joe. And we had a lot of people. I think Seattle was one of my favorites because that's where Galen came to see us. Remember?
Yes, Galen came to see us, and we went down to the market there, the famous market where they throw the fish. And it was a hippie, and there was a young hippie down there playing a Creedence Clearwater Vital song that we just stood and talked to him for a while.
We sang right with him.
Yeah.
We sang with him about the rain.
Yeah. Well, some of these teachers we would see each time we go to Boston, New Orleans, we see some of these teachers come back again.
That's right.
Again and again. Plus, you also were going into Greensboro for to teach the North Carolina teachers how to teach the course and so forth.
I did that for several years because the state convention was much more local, of course, easy to get to. Guys came down, helped me out. Me and the infamous Lindy Poling was very strong there. And we spread the course to all the schools in Carolina. And then they, of course, took it everywhere. Went to, I think, 6 or 7 national conventions and spoke. I know Joe didn't go to St. Louis with us.
No.
But we went to Boston, New Orleans,
Seattle.
Yeah, we went. Me and Lindy went to Cincinnati and D.C. So we think we have our course. We're part of our course in over 3,000 schools now. And from time to time, I'll get an email from a school, and they'll get on the website, they'll get on the lesson plans, and they'll look at some of the vocabulary. So it is a little bit dormant in Pittsburgh, but it's not dead. Yeah. It's still there.
Well, also, those are people who don't realize it, but Texas Tech probably has one of the best facilities for studying the Vietnam War of anybody in the country. They have all kinds of stuff, and you've been there, do a presentation there?
It might be the best, because they have the archive there.
Yeah.
It was endowed by Ross Perot. And we went down there several years ago, about 6 of us. They flew us down, and Joe was there, and Al went. And we were down there, and that's when we ran into Elmo Zumwalt.
Yeah.
And he became a real good friend of the group, helped us out quite a bit. And we got to talk to all kind of teachers in Texas. And then we, ironically, the more we talked to people, the more they wanted to hear things. And some of the guys got a little self-conscious because they were so good at talking about Vietnam. I told them the danger was that some teachers are going to get a little intimidated. And that's one of our biggest problems, was having the teachers take a back seat when you guys came in and just facilitate and let you teach and you take questions. And as soon as you told your right story, you had them in your hand anyway.
Yeah,
and finally, the teacher came around, and they said, well,
I think another good story people relate to is how much we reached out. Is like when we went to D.C., North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated, one of the members of our organization was a guy by the name of Nick Rowe and Dan Pitzer. Both of them were POWs. Dan left a little earlier than Nick. Nick escaped, of course, and they came back to Fort Bragg Special Forces and started the SEER School. But Nick was assassinated riding in a bulletproof car in the Philippines.
Correct.
But he's buried at Arlington Cemetery, right next to the amphitheater where the Tomb of the Unknown is located. And we were there. Whenever we always went up there, we always told the old guard we were coming. They would supply us with a bugler and a color guard so we could do a ceremony for Nick. And we were there one day doing the ceremony, and a guy walked up to you and asked you if you knew Nick. He was from McAllen, Texas, and it went bananas from there. Tell us about it.
Well, I think he was talking to somebody in the corner, and they told him there was a group here with a teacher that teaches Vietnam, and when we were paying like you said, our respects to Nick, and he walks over and says, "Are you the teacher?" And I said, "Yes." He's up from McAllen, Texas. Home with Nick Rowe. Did you know there was a high school named after Nick Rowe? Well, he was speaking not just to me, to all of us. And when he said that, I caught your eye, I caught Joe's eye. We looked at each other. There was no words needed. Road trip. And we said yes. And he said, well, we're to Nick Rowe High School. We came back to the meeting and we said to the guys, we're going to Texas. We're going to drive.
Yeah,
so what a story.
I think the
drove
school
to McAllen, Texas.
Yeah, the school I think was actually I think we flew the first time. if I remember
We
correctly.
did fly.
We did fly. And
We did
the
fly. You're
school
right.
did not quite understand what these weird people from Vietnam vets were coming from North Carolina to their school. We just kind of
I
invited
know.
ourselves to the school. And we got there, and the principal and the teachers all fell in love with us. That's a school that is one blonde in the entire student body,
That's
everybody,
right.
so forth. And they invited us back. Ron Harris introduced them to his play Etchings in Stone, which they put
That's
together,
right.
did a fantastic job, and asked us to come back. And so then we drove. Uh,
We drove it.
oh,
Well,
I'm still driving
when you look
29
at it like that,
hours
Bill,
straight on the way back.
when, when you look at it, it kind of all depends. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it was like this: is the second trip back, it was like unbelievable because you pay tribute to your brothers, your fallen brothers. But Nick Rowe is so special. I never knew the man personally. You did. You knew Dan Fitzer and Ron did. I knew of his legend. And I would, every year, buy 10 books, 5 Years to Freedom, from the Barnes & Noble. And everywhere we went, I would give the teacher a book. I would say, read this. And ironically, we met Nick Rowe's son later at one of our meetings. But the Nick Rowe story is very special because McAllen, Texas, on the Texas border, whether people believe it or not, is called one of the safest towns in America. We get down there and had the play and the experience. It was wonderful. And as this unwraps, my role in teaching Vietnam was small, and all the guys together, we formed a team that taught a nation.
Well, Bob,
And I said
when we
before,
got there, a lot of the people, a lot of the teachers and the students did not know who Nick Rowe was. But when we left, they did because they opened up a special display case for him. They had flags all over the place for him. When we left there, they knew who he was and
sure
paid
did.
homage to him. And he had a very special place in the school when we came back.
That's right, he did. He was a bona fide hero, and he should have been. And it just seems like that the story goes on and on because there's never an ending to it. Because the lessons of Vietnam are learned every day. And it seems like a lot of the men and women today that are in the armed services have learned the lessons of Vietnam. And the government has somewhat. I hope we make a difference.
Well,
I know you did.
we made a difference to a lot of kids out there. A lot of kids out there, as you know, get a bad rap, but all the classes we went with different other teachers, you helped the other teachers. We went some of the trips we went to Vietnam. We went some of the other teachers and so forth. But there's some good kids out there, and
Oh, yeah.
which they get a bad rap. Listen, I want to show a couple more slides here, and so we
Go
can kind of go again. Let's see the next one. There you are. There we are. That's the first playground we put together. That's you, me, Bob Kay, and Ron Fitzsimmons. And if you look off to your left shoulder there, you see the yellow tube still laying on the ground.
Yes, I do.
I think we
Yep.
spent 3 days just trying to put that sucker together, and
Well,
finally
you know,
paid Papa San $50 to put it together after we left. But that's
it
Sister
was,
Mary, and
there it is.
we negotiated that playground here in Raleigh. We shipped it
And we
over
did.
to Vietnam, went over there and put it together, which was a challenge to itself. But those kids who had nothing, I mean, those kids will just warm your heart just seeing them on that playground, as you can see there, folks. And that's why we were invited back to build another playground, which we'll see in a few
You know
minutes
that,
with
of
there.
course, because, like, right in that picture, if you look at that picture, we know that love and caring has no boundaries, race, religion, nothing. The Vietnamese kids there was the main reason we went to Vietnam as soldiers years ago, was to give the South Vietnamese a better life. And the kids missed out on it. But look at our feet. All that tile work there, all that stuff was done by you, by email with an engineer. And we get there, and we change lives.
Yes,
And as we said to Sister Mary,
Sister Mary there,
we'll be
she's
back.
very special herself. She was pretty strict with other sisters and so forth, but she loved us as much as we loved her. In fact, she kept us going with ice cold watermelon and ice cream and so forth. So she looked after us good.
Oh, she did. And we told her when we were leaving, we'll be back.
Yeah.
And we did go back.
We went back. Went back and carried them some more money and some another canvas and so forth and some other stuff. Okay. Next one.
And we did.
Now here we are in Dong Ha. There's Bob Mathews reading the blueprints, trying to figure out how to put this thing together. And that's I mean, we had a big playground to put in a little bitty hole, but that's the Children's Center in Dong Ha. Dong Ha, for you out there, is right on the DMZ. It's only about 10 to 15 minutes as the jet flies to the ocean.
That's right. Sure it is.
Song told us we could take a break early that day and go down to the beach. He says only about 15 minutes, and it was probably closer to 45 when we got there. But as you can see, the Welcome to the Bridgeback Group banner that you brought with them and so forth. So it's amazing now. We're dying from the heat there, and they're walking around with jackets and so forth on.
I know.
Yeah.
That's where we had
actually that's a climbing wall there. The slide where Bob's standing there is where the tube comes out and so forth.
Yeah.
But those kids were very special too.
We had those little plaques made for people donating money.
Yes.
And when we had the whole thing put up, you'll see it probably a little later in the show if you have more slides, where we donated the playground from Wake County merchants and individuals.
Yes.
Helped us
people who helped us pay for the playground and so forth. Now, there you are with song, and we actually did the show from the playground there. And this is about 5:30 in the morning in Vietnam.
And there's Ron Harris.
Ron Harris and the guy who kind of run the place standing up back there. Where is that? Sue Vaughn. I believe it's Sue Vaughn standing up. And
that is Sue Vaughn. The guy back there drinking the water was Song's assistant.
Yeah, he worked at the with Global Spectrum out of Dong Ha. But there we are at the playground.
That's right.
And we actually did the show from and here you are interviewing Song, our number one guide.
Yeah, that's right. It was
now there's Bob at the gift shop there, and one of the places we stop at the gift shop, and as you can see, he was entertaining the ladies. It looks like one of them getting ready to slug him.
That's right. Well, she wasn't really, because I told her a joke in Vietnamese, and she said, "Can you speak Vietnamese?" I said, "You know I can. We have to speak it. We're there." And then they were laughing at us because we were spending money and telling jokes.
Yes.
They're very nice people.
Now, here we are. There's the Motley Crew, and we're at the Mission River Plantation. You see Bob there with his Virginia Tech shirt on with Sue Vaughn. I'm the weird guy in the back with the hat. Ron Harris. Let's see. Dave Samuels with his crew. All there at the Mission River Plantation.
Yeah, and in the back is Bobby Frower, rest his soul. Bobby's left us. And that's the big group right there. We had 12 of us. Everybody not in that picture, I don't think.
No. And this picture, folks are sitting out there listening to this. This is the picture we took of Bob just before he shut down the tunnels of Cu Chi. I don't have a picture of him, but there is a picture available of Bob going to go down into the tunnels. And
that's right.
His wallet got stuck.
Yeah, keep lying, Bill. Anyway, get back to the picture there.
All right, go back to the picture then. All right, we'll go back to the picture. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
These people here, they came with us. They all had a special mission, different things to do. It was quite an undertaking. The News Observer covered it quite a bit, interviewed us all, and we were staying on a junk. After a while,
the next picture's got the junk in it. Go ahead. There you are serving coffee. I know when they said that we were going to go to Hanoi, we said, hell no, we don't want to go to Hanoi. And then they said, well, we're going to spend the night on a junk. And we said, not only hell no, we're not going to Hanoi. We ain't going to be on a junk. But we
That's
thought a
right.
junk was like we saw when we were in Vietnam, where this was a 12 suite yacht here, and there you
It was a
are
12
serving
bedroom yacht.
coffee.
It was beautiful.
Yes, and Ha
Everybody
Long
loved it.
Bay. If you folks, if you ever want to go someplace absolutely fantastic, go to Hanoi, go out to Ha Long Bay, and take one of those junks. It is absolutely fantastic, gorgeous, and we'll get Bob Mathews to go along to serve you coffee. Now there's
Yep,
Bob.
of course.
There's Bob. We're going into the Quezon Museum. They started a museum there in Quezon, and I believe when Bob got off, we got there off the bus and so forth. You found a dog tag, or no? Papa Son come tried to sell you a dog tag that
He
he
did.
just dug up.
I was walking around, and he came over and said, "Hey, I found a dog tag for you." And we looked at it and said, "No, you didn't." We all looked at it and said, this is a huckster. He's a con man." And that was
Yes.
a big museum where they had a lot of propaganda in that baby.
Oh
A lot of
yes,
propaganda.
it was. If you could either get mad or just you're laughing at it because some of the stuff they had in there was so far fetched. Okay.
It was,
Now
especially with
there's you and
ships we lost.
Suvon at the Citadel there in Way, where the king of Vietnam used to live, and with your Pittsburgh Steelers hat on, and
Yeah,
that,
we all wore the Ridgeback shirts so they rotted off our
yeah,
bodies. But that's all we had. We had one shirt for the whole trip. It was good. We went everywhere.
yeah.
It
We
was
could
well worth it.
when we got back, you could see every meal Joe Harsh had.
Yeah,
It was every meal that was
yeah,
on his shirt.
yeah. He was a legend. That's exactly right. And bless her soul, Susan not doing real well, but
Yeah.
she was a tripper. She was a tripper.
Now to say that Bob is bashful and won't get things done, uh, we took a barrel, cut it in two, and took it up to D.C. several years ago. For those of you haven't seen some of the past shows, basically it's a crap burning barrel. We'll
Yes, it
keep it
is.
that way, where you burn human waste in, and we had it chromed and was set up there. And it's now kept into this museum that they have for everything left at the wall. And this is the guy that started the museum. And
Yeah,
Bob kind of made arrangements that we were going to go up there and see the museum. And he met us. He was off that day, but Bob kind of finagled him to come back in, and because he had been retired just about that time. But
that's right. That's right.
he was a Vietnam
He was all
vet,
right.
but came back, saw that stuff left at the wall, and that place is worth the trip. That place is spotless, and
Yeah, it's over in Landover, Maryland. And a lot of people know, I'm sure all the listeners know that things left at the wall is a story within itself. They collect everything but the flowers, and they catalog them, and they put them in these containers in this archive in Maryland. And you go over there. We got a special invitation to go over there and look at it. You can spend a couple of days there. And this guy was so nice to us all.
we
And
got a
Bill's
special
legendary
we got
barrel
a
came
special
out.
invitation because you called them 3 or 4 times and bugged them, so they gave you a special
Of course.
invitation. That's kind of how
So
you always got things done, Bob. Is just somebody takes care of
just
the
special people.
squeaky wheel. So that
Just
was
special to that.
okay. That must have been all of them then. But that'll kind of give you an idea of Bob and the bridge back and the course and so forth. And I hope you can get it going in Pittsburgh area, and because I think it is such an important course, especially today as we've gotten so politically correct. One of the things that bothers me is here where they're going in and rewriting history or don't
Yeah,
understand history, and they're tearing down statues and so forth. And there's so much misunderstanding about the Vietnam War. And what Bob did through the course, it gave us an outlet to go talk to the kids and to other places, outlets to tell the real story of Vietnam. This is where this show came from. Is Bob got it started at Enlow High School. We all jumped on board with him, and in spite of him sometimes, but we got it going, and proud of what he was able to do, and we were part of it. And like I said, this show is trying to tell the truth. But what concerns me is what happens 50 years from now or 100 years from now is our history going to be that the point that they're going to start tearing down our memorials because we were known as baby killers, psychotics, and so forth, which we're not. We have been trying to dispel that uh, story for years and years, and hopefully some of the kids we have taught over the years, especially with your course and Link Page, who was kind of took up the course after you retired and so forth at Broughton High School, and of course Jim Bone, and we've had some other good, really outstanding teachers teach the course here.
Sure.
And I hope that
Bill,
the legacy that you've been able to put out there, Bob, keeps right on growing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, Bill, we said before a long time ago that Vietnam is like a river. It runs through you and it will all your life. Because I don't think there's a day that goes by I don't think about Vietnam. Something reminds me, a TV show or reference. A great show now that's on This Is Us.
Yes.
Had a very nice segment about Vietnam and about the guy came back that was a dead ringer from Mike Cook. And I said, meeting guys like Bill Dixon, Joe Harsh, and all the guys in Carolina gave me some stability that I was not alone, and that we could teach this course to America and they would listen. And as Bill said before, we were very persistent, like a squeaky wheel. We knew the doors would come down eventually. We ran into a bunch of teachers in the early 90s that were very, very open. They were great teachers. But Bill mentioned a few of them, Lincoln Lindy and Jim Bauman and Sandy and Betty Vaughn. All through the county, it became the course. It was the most popular elective in Wake County. And we were written up in USA Today as probably having the best course in the nation. And we fed upon that. We loved being called that. And we went over and over and over and taught it to teachers that would teach it. And we spent a lot of our own money. I know Bill did. I know I did. We spent our own money because we wanted to. Because a lot of vets came back and they had survivor guilt. They came back and other ones didn't. When we came back, we called it survival responsibility. We came back to tell the story of Vietnam. That's what we call it, to teach a nation.
Bob, one of the things that I think for Vietnam vets sitting out there who are watching the show or going to watch the show later, Vietnam comes back every day.
It does.
But now Vietnam comes back every day with the trip to Vietnam, working with those kids when we work with the visually impaired kids. The last playground was for the autistic and deaf kids. The first playground for the handicapped kids. Those are the thoughts that come back now. By going into classes and telling a story, it was hard to start with. We'd have to go 3 or 4 hours together to kind of lean on each other. But as we started telling the story, it got easier. And as it got easier, the hard times got easier. It was very therapeutic.
Bill, I think the vets that came in and built the course with me got as much out of speaking as the kids did, because it gave them a release point. Because you know as well as I do, when we first came home, the only one that wanted to hear about Nam were your loved ones. And you went and had a beer with somebody, and they've another Vietnam vet. Then all of a sudden we start wearing hats and T-shirts, and the doors open, and meals were bought, and discussions were had, and questions were asked, and answers were given.
It's kind of funny out there. Kind of funny out there, folks. Bob grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up in North Carolina. We have the very same birthday, September 29th, 1944. He's getting a little old, but I think he's a little bit older than I am. Your mother's name was Pearl, wasn't it?
It was.
My mother's name was Pearl.
I know.
And so,
flowers crossed.
So we've been celebrating our birthdays for years and years here. But if you're out there, folks, and you got somebody in Pennsylvania, tell them about this show and let them come in and see Bob and look for him over there, because I'd like to see him put together in Pennsylvania just what we had here. Because like I said, It was probably one of the best things that ever happened to the local Vietnam vets here. And I know it's one of the best things that happened to so many kids and
Yes,
teachers
it was.
out there. The show and the course, the Lessons of Vietnam course, which probably still in 2,000 or better schools, maybe 3,000 schools nationwide, has
Yes, it is.
had such a positive if, effect on the students and teachers who are teaching the course and so forth. Uh, it's a real legacy to be proud of, Bob. There's ever a Hall of Fame for that. I think you ought to have uh, a big
Well,
plaque.
well,
When we get maybe we'll enshrine it in the Mathews group.
I'll tell you, Bill, if there's ever a Hall of Fame for Lessons of Vietnam, I will not be going in alone. This was really fun tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit of things that are going on for those of you out there that live in this area. There's all kinds of things, opportunities. March 29th, which was the day we left Vietnam in 1973. Now they have decided that March 29th is National Vietnam Veterans Day, and there's all kinds of things going on here. Let's see. Our next show, by the way, will be on the 27th of March. We're going to talk a bit about the legacy of Vietnam and Vietnam veterans. If you're in the triangular area of North Carolina, there are several opportunities to talk with Vietnam veterans during the Vietnam Experience, which will be March 28th and 29th at the North Carolina History Museum. There's going to be a table set up there with a Vietnam veteran, if he was in artillery or was a medic or whatever, that you can ask them questions. We'll have a 1/8 replica of the wall. We have POW panels. We'll be showing Ron Harris wrote a play, Etchings in Stone, which we've been talking about quite a bit. That will be showing. A Huey helicopter is going to be there. You can go have your picture taken or your kids' pictures taken in a helicopter, all kinds of displays and so forth. That is the North Carolina History Museum in downtown Raleigh, March 29th. Also, March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, the Vietnam Veterans of America will be holding a 6-state conference at the Millennium Hotel in Durham. And stop by and see what the VVA is all about and how they're nationally supporting Vietnam veterans. Again, the replica of the wall will be there. The etchings in stone will be shown, and there'll be other displays and things going on of interest. On the 29th and 30th, as I said, for the History Museum, I believe this is probably going to be our last year down there. We've been there the last 5 years. With Bob gone now last year and this year going back up north, we're not having quite somebody's got to motivate the group, and Bob ain't here to push and motivate them and so forth. It's like the old story: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, Bob knows how to salt their oaks. On the 29th, the Veterans of Foreign Wars 73, 83 in Cary will be holding a dinner and a dance for Vietnam veterans and their families on Reedy Creek Road. That dinner is free. And April 1st, North Carolina National Guard will be holding a Vietnam War era Veterans Day event at 11 o'clock on the Gold Star Drive, which is the National Guard headquarters, and it's a free lunch there. So you got all these chances to get a free meal out there. And I don't know Vietnam out there anywhere who wouldn't take a free meal. And on the 6th of April, the Vietnamese American Association of Raleigh will be holding a Vietnam Heritage Day at Bond Park. With Bob and I have been working quite a bit with the Vietnamese American group here. By the way, the colonel has been under the weather a little bit, and they're the ones who were so much behind helping us raise the money and so forth. But Bob, I hope you have continued good health up there in the north, and at least I can tell. You're unusual as a damn Yankee. I mean, damn Yankee is the guy that comes down and stays, but you're not a damn Yankee anymore because you went back.
Well, Bill, I thank you so much for the time tonight. Thank you.
We miss you, and come back down to God's country and see us.
You bet, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Have a good night. Bye.
are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.